Okay. So hello everyone. I didn't check the chat yet, but I assume most of you guys are here. So today we're going to be a continuation of what we had last week, where we did how to draw faces. I did that with a few girls. I'm not sure how many and who's here again, but I did it, and then we were going to go into how to shade in a face the next week. So now we're doing like how to shade in a face. If you have yours from last week, you could use yours from last week. I have mine right here. I'm just gonna erase this, and we're just learning how to draw skin tones and how to put in the shades. So if you were here last week, you'll see that I just kind of changed mine up a bit. I have two different types of faces because we're going to draw two different skin tones. We're going to draw one that's really pale and then one that's really dark, because usually a white skin tone is like the default in art, which is something that I think a lot of us really need to move away from. And it's become a problem. Even I've seen like a lot of my art classes where they only draw like really light skin tones, so people never learn how to draw darker skin tones. So I'm really trying to make sure that we learn both, because it is a good skill to learn how to draw both and apply it. And it's just generally just a better thing to do. So there's two different hair types and two different skin tones I'll be going over today. So the first thing you need is one of these little kneaded erasers. If you use like an eraser like this, these are for correcting things. This is just for getting rid of graphite. So most artists have one of these. I'm also going to start with a face on my right, because I like drawing right to left for no apparent reason. I don't know why. So then we can move to the one on the left when we're done. I need to move away from drawing right to left because I'm right-handed, so I usually smudge up my other thing when I'm drawing on the left, which is a problem, and I'm working on it, I assure you. So the first thing we're going to do is, this is a light skin tone, so we're going to pick out our colors. So the first thing you have to do is you're going to put in your light source. So I'm going to say mine's up in the corner here and shining down this way. And for light sources, you typically have either warm colors or cool colors. Warm colors are things like, maybe just take this out, are these colors, like your reds, your oranges, yellows, occasionally purples. And cool colors are anything that's like blue, green, and then dark purples like this. So those are your two different types of color palettes. You got your warm and you got your dark. Your warm and your cool, sorry. And I typically use a warm source because it's just a little bit easier. And it's a little bit more visible to see. And it makes it typically more vibrant too. Like if you're using cool colors, you have to make sure it doesn't make the person look like dead. So, which is a weird thing. Like there are people who do it really well. I did it the other day where I had to use two light sources, and I could even see like the different things that I hate about this picture as soon as I posted it. So, where is it? So I did the character Zuko from an anime someone suggested to me. And you can see that I used cool colors right here on like this hand, and then warm colors here on this hand, because I'm using the ice and then the fire. So you can already see that I put way too much shading here and then like none here. And it really bothers me because now I can see it, and it bugs me so much. I also didn't start off with my warm colors. So I just kind of put it on top of here, so now it makes like a really sickly green, and it's bugging me so much. But yeah, so that's why I typically just don't, when I draw my colors, they're typically just like, I'm trying. So whenever I do my colors, you tend to start with whatever light source you have. So for the pale skin tone, oh yeah, I have to check the chat. So for the pale skin tone, I typically try to keep some sort of warm color. So we're going to use the cream first. Now we're going to move, I use cream. This is light peach. This is peach, but any really yellow or pink will do. And then for shadows, you use lilac. Is this lilac? Yeah, this is lilac. It's just like really light purple. And light purple is excellent for shadows. Light purple is best for really any skin tone, depending on what you're doing. And then red can also be a really good one, depending on what you're doing as well. And then for shadows, you do, this is terracotta, which is just kind of like a reddish thing. And then I also have Tuscan red, which is just like a really deep red that you use. And then you have these two, which are Sienna Brown and Burnt Ochre, which are just really light browns. And you have, I typically try to stay away from dark umber just because it can make a really weird purple color, but it's not bad. And then you have dark brown. So you basically, if you don't have Prismacolors, you could use close to like a blackish brown, or you could use really dark grays and use that. Oops. A dark brown, some sort of light brown or like reddish thing, some sort of dark red or dark red brown, any sort of light purple, pinks. Usually you have peach in those colors, and then a cream color, which can be yellow. It could be even this color, like this is sand. It's just like a little bit deeper, but it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But one thing you want, you never use white. You rarely, if ever, use white in any of your drawings when it comes to skin tones, unless it's like hair. So in my previous drawing, you saw I had the hair thing, and that had white in it because it was white hair. So the first thing you do, we already said the light source. I'm just going to keep these over here that are all color organized, and we're going to start here. So if the light source is coming down from here, you're going to think about where the light hits. So for this, the light hits at the top of the forehead, and you're just going to color it in like that. This could be really messy at the moment, and it probably hits the top of the cheekbone, and it probably hits the nose right here, probably a little bit right here. I didn't really go in there very well. That's just a kneaded eraser. I just didn't brush it very well. And maybe the top of the lip right here. And then you're going to put in your shadows, and that's with your purple. And there's always like a little bit of shadow like right above the eye and by underneath the eyebrow because you have those colors. Sorry, a little bit of sore throat from cold and sinuses. And then you're going to have it right underneath the nose, right underneath the lips. That's the chin area. It's really just draw the chin completely. And then a little bit right here. So if you are into makeup, it's kind of like contouring. I tell that to a lot of people just because a lot of people that I do teach are insanely good makeup artists for some reason. And I don't know why that is. And right under here, because the hair causes shadow. So I just try to make a comparison. So if you are ever like contouring, you'll know that. And so it all goes into, so purple all goes into places where you know the colors are coming from. You can use a source. I don't have a reference right now, or a reference. And then you move into actually putting in the skin tones. So I always start with light peach, and that goes directly into the cream color. The cream color is like right on top, and you're using circular motions. You're not going to use like zigzag like this because it doesn't blend as well, and it will look really weird at the end. So we're going to use this, and then you're going to go back into cream. You need to like go over it a few times, especially if you're using like a wax core or a soft core pencil like I'm using. If you're using a brand like Faber-Castell, which is an oil-based brand, meaning that the oil is just, you put it down and that is the color. You can't really burnish it or mix it in, which honestly really sucks because you can't make those nice blending motions, and it can be really hard to blend afterwards. So like once you put down the color, that's all you have. So now we got that soft core. I'm gonna see if there's any questions. Nope. Also, feel free to ask as many questions as you would like in the comment section, because I know it's gonna get confusing like real fast, especially if I haven't done it before. So Then when you're doing your lilac, I typically just do it pretty deep because shadows are often really deep. But you could also just go right over with lilac with cream to make it less severe. And then we're going to go with, let's really use the Tuscan Red, excuse me, over it. And you'll see it looks really terrible now at the moment, but then you're going to go over it with a color like this. This is just regular peach. I used light peach for the first one. And you're just going to blend it in. And it starts to look better. Then you can blend it down into this. And then you can occasionally just use like a lighter color just to lighten it up a bit. I typically like mess around with the lighting like a lot, especially with like these sorts of things. So I'm just kind of going with like peach, imagining where it would hit this person's head. And then sometimes I just go back in with the lilac just to blend it in a little bit better and make it more visibly that darker color. And occasionally I'll just go into brown just to make it more severe. But you don't want to go too dark, especially if you're doing really light skin, because you'll get like this weird purplish color and then it'll start to look a little bit mucky. So you need to make sure there's a balance there. That's the nice thing about drawing darker skin tones. Darks, because of melanin, which is what gives our skin its color, it's reflective on light. So the way it works is that it just doesn't really absorb light as much as, say, really pale skin. So it kind of bounces off, which gives it these beautiful red and purple and sometimes even blue hues and even orange, depending on the undertone of the skin. And that's just like it's always been like a really favorite thing of mine, just to draw dark skin, because I get to play with that fancy lighting. And you could do a lot of it. Like you could put a lot of emotion into it too. So most of the characters I draw superheroes, and because I'm lucky that there is a lot of diversity in there, I could play around with a lot of different skin tones. That's why I encourage everyone to like draw outside of just like the normal or like the default white skin tone, because it's more fun and it's more inclusive and it's better. So now we got that, and we're gonna go down to here. I'm using light peach still, and we're just gonna do the nose bridge real quick. Eyes I'm gonna save for last because I might do this next week. Just do that in the hair next week because I don't know how much time I'll have. And it's already 20 minutes, wow. So I'm not 100% sure. But if I go over, someone I know will stop me. So next I'm going to do just some shadows in the eye, because I typically just like to go up to down. And for the eye, I like to use dark colors to just highlight the fact that, oh yes, that is a very dark area. Then I always burnish with a lighter color. This way, I could just do that. Burnishing of a light color is always like really helpful, because it really makes it clear that that is a light area. And it blends in pretty smooth. Like if you try to blend a dark color over a light color, it's really, really often that it'll make like a weird color on top of it, because it just doesn't burnish well at all. And I'll show you that in a second. That's why I'm burnishing this here, to show you. I use light peach, and now I'm going to use a dark color like this. This is Sienna Brown. And you'll see it just kind of doesn't blend like at all. So you're going to have to use a light color. I'm going to use light peach for this one to just kind of blend it in and get it to mix well. So I'm not 100% sure why that is, and then see that blends in a lot better. And I'm sure there's probably someone out there who knows better than I do, like an actual professional artist who works with these pencils all the time. But occasionally I just like to just not have anything blend. So if you saw my previous one, I did one of Peter Parker. I didn't blend some parts of it just to make it rougher because I like the style of it. Because I draw my style from like a lot of different people. So nose bridge is always kind of light on top because that's where the light's hitting it. And then little nose thingy down at the bottom. So it's like you don't have to blend all the time. Blending is not the most important part of art. The most important part of drawing a good skin tone is just not looking, well, I think my skin is like peach, and then drawing the entire thing like peach because it won't look realistic. It won't look very good at all, in my opinion, because it will just look like you sat there and then just used one color. And even though it can work in some scenarios, like if you look at most comic books, their characters are drawn with just one color. And that's just because inking or being colorist, which I'd actually like to do one day, that'd be really fun. It's such a time-consuming job that they just decide, well, we're just going to take a few samples from this color. We're going to deviate it a little bit so then we don't have to constantly color the same thing over and over and over again. That's the same thing with anything. If you like, I always got confused as to why they have such immaculate comic book covers. And then like you flipped into the book and there's like no color at all. And sometimes it was just like they only used like 3 dominant colors. Like I think Daredevil's one of them. They only use about 3 colors max in some of their things and just use it, they just deviate it with light. So it looks really it looks like really pale at first, but it's the art style. So it's just they use a lot of shadows in it to make it look nicer. And it just makes it look better. So now I'm going in with, I always draw light peach down on something just to make it look, just to give it a base. And then I move on to peach and browns, whatever other colors. And this makes it just look better. So if you'll notice, I'm going over different things like a lot. And that's because I'm not always happy with how certain things turn out first. So a lot of this is just experimenting. Like I am 100% self-taught because every time I try to get into an art class, I just never do. And I end up begging at the counselor's office to beg them, please let me into this class. I really want to do art. I don't want to be stuck at piano. I don't even own a piano. So it's actually a true story. I was stuck at piano all year last year because I couldn't get into art class. And I felt so bad because she's like, if you have a piano, because as soon as the pandemic hit and we had to close down school, she wanted us to all practice the piano at home. But I don't even own a piano app, so I felt so bad. And yeah, that's a little tangent. I go off on tangents during art for some reason. So I'm just going to go back in. I'm going to lighten this up a little bit just to make it less severe. So I'm starting to get down to like the bottom. I have almost half the face done, and that's where you're going to put in a lot of your shadows. So shadows are just like a big thing. It's always been a pet peeve of mine because I can never draw shadows like the way I like it. And that's not as much like pet peeve as it is I just don't like my art. If you'll ask any artist to critique their own art, they will tell you how much they hate everything about their art. And that's just like a thing that artists do for some reason. And that's because they look at their art, they're like, I could do better. And there's like a weird curve. Like whenever you see someone's art, I do this a lot. I compare myself too much on, like I go on Pinterest and I just compare myself to the artists on there. Don't do this, by the way. It's very bad for your health. And I'll just sit there and I'm like, wow, I really wish I was as good as this artist. And then I try to like adopt the style that they have. And typically it ends up like I have done this style, but because I never tried it before, it looks terrible because you've never practiced drawing that style before. So you end up thinking, wow, my art style is terrible. It's never going to look this good. I'm going to completely forget how to draw this artwork, and I'm not going to try it again. That's not a very good mindset, because if you're drawing something for the first time, it's never going to look good. And there's also like this weird learning curve where you start off just completely hating your art because you just don't like it. And then after you improve on it, you start to really like it. And this is how I see most people go about drawing art critique. And then they'll be like, wow, it looks really good. And then they try to move on to another style. And then that style is typically a lot different than the original one. So then they're back in that cycle of, wow, I'm a terrible artist because now this doesn't look exactly like the picture. And then they're back to, well, now I need to practice more. And it just keeps going on and on and on until they get to where they want to be. And that's just like a learning curve that everyone has to go through. No matter what artist you are, I'm just lying down like Peach at the moment. And sadly, it's something that really brings people down. So if you are an artist out there, which if you're probably watching this, you probably are, maybe not, just don't beat yourself up over not being exactly like this artist the moment that you start practicing their art style. You're never going to be perfect right out of the box. No person was perfect right out of the box, except for those like 13-year-olds who could draw hyper-realism on Instagram. You think they're like 26-year-old art students, but they turn out to be like an elementary school student. I don't know how those people exist. They're just art prodigies and they're just art gods. I don't know how it works. It's because my art looks so different last year. And I thought I improved so much. And then I see like this random 13-year-old, like, my art sucks. And it basically looks like the Mona Lisa. Those kids should just be granted eternal art scholarships because it's ridiculous how good they are. So, but yeah, most of you probably not end up like that because art takes a while. It's a learning process, and it really honestly is just for fun. I might go into art professionally. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll see where that leaves me. If I could get into an art class this year, I might be able to do that. So I'm going to go directly to the counselor's office as soon as school starts and just sit there and beg, because begging is the best way to get into an art class, apparently. So then we got the nose done. You'll see a little bit. This camera quality, oh my gosh, this camera quality. That is the worst camera quality I've ever seen. I didn't realize how weird this would look. Oh wow. This looks a lot better than what the camera shows you. I'm going to have to darken this up like a lot, because you guys literally cannot see it. I haven't checked the chat in a while. In chat? Nope. Yeah, I'm going to have to darken this up a lot because this is just not working out. I think this is mostly just because of my phone's camera. I don't have a very good camera on my phone. And my phone is pretty old. It's the iPhone 6, and I think we're on an iPhone, 10 by now, so my camera just stopped getting updates maybe a year ago, so I'm going to just darken this up so you can actually see it and compare yourself to this. Again, don't compare my art to your art, because don't compare your art to any other artist, because I have been doing this for a very, very long time. I've been doing this all of quarantine, and my art looks insanely different from the beginning of quarantine to the end of quarantine. Like, I could draw one of these faces in about 15 minutes now, and it took me about an hour to draw one that's half as good at the start of this. And you can even see it, basically all my art, where it's just, oh my gosh, I put that in way too heavy. And you can just see it progressing, which is good. The exact same time, I go back and look at my old art and just cringe. But also, that's another big thing for artists. Don't keep your old art. Don't throw away your like old art or the art that's like not as good or you think isn't as good, because it's still something that was really, really good at the time being, and the fact that you don't like it now just shows how much you've progressed. So I only think I barely used Tuscan Red in this at all. I honestly need to relearn how to draw certain things. Like, I definitely need to relearn how to draw certain shadows, because mine is just so different now. Like, I'm kind of like in the learning curve as well, because I'm trying to like adopt my style still, which is just kind of just another way of saying you're trying to try new different things and you're working out different ways to get a new style. And most of your styles are developing like constantly. Like, I see a lot of people, like a lot of my friends who draw stuff draw like more an anime-esque style, meaning it's like less it's less realistic and more just more cartoony. And their style typically doesn't require a lot of colors. So yours might not either. It doesn't necessarily have to be realism. This thing won't stay. I draw realism just because I like the look of it. And because everything I draw is like a person, so now I'm just going in and I'm putting in all the shadows that I want to be really heavily emphasized, and I'm going to go over it again with light peach. Now you're going to have to do this a couple of times, because if you're using something, especially something like Prismacolor, it is wax based, so you kind of got to go in and just press it in. How much time do we have? Anybody see the time? Oh, it's 12:30. Okay, I'm almost done with this. Now hurry and do the other one. We'll do like the eyes and hair next week, because I just simply don't have enough time. But there is, first thing, this looks pretty bad just because of this camera quality. Like, I'm staring into the camera, I'm staring into the screen right now, and it looks spooky. I don't really like it. But next week, next week I think is the last week, we'll get into how to draw eye color, because eyes are just way different. My phone's also going to die soon, so I'm going to have to hurry this up. So, again, I'm just going in with my kneaded thing. So I'm going to have to draw a light skin tone, and then I'm going to pray very much that my phone is surviving by the end of this. So, please excuse me. I'm just going to draw that because I just accidentally cut something in there. That's just, oh, that's what that was. Okay, that was just an eraser bit. All right, so now we got the dark skin tone. So for dark, it's pretty much all of these same colors, except you just take out the light peach and occasionally the peach, depending on what your color scheme is. And then I'm going to put in darker colors, such as beige, and that's a gray. Just sometimes beige and ginger root, but I typically just like to take that out completely. Like I said, The source of light is still coming from there. So you're going to start off with your darkest color. I'm going to start off with sepia, which is your like really dark color that's like near black, and I'm going to use it for shadows because the light source is coming out from over here, and I want that to be obvious. So for this one, the last one I used purple for shadows, and I'm still going to in this, but I'm going to use it more sparingly. Because the reason it sticks out in light skin tones is because light skin tones actually absorb the different colors. And they physically absorb the light because it's white light and against less melanin. Whereas black absorbs it and reflects it. So it is like a really cool feature about just darker skin that I tend to like really love drawing. So like I said, you could use like really fun colors. Like I could use some Tuscan red, but you could also use like these crimson reds, or I sometimes even use like poppy red, and you see how they're like really bright. That's just because different light sources can cause darker skin tones to reflect that light back that is slightly absorbed and also slightly more toned down. So you'll see that I just went through the sepia and I just kind of put in the shadows where I want them to be. I may use this. I use it really sparingly. So I am going over this so lightly, it's barely visible. I don't want to use too much because I know its light is not going to be there. I'm then going to use, where is it? Tuscan red. Yeah, Tuscan red. And that's just to go into the highlights. So highlights are going to be over here. And that's because that skin tone reflects those colors. It always reflects red light back, no matter what you have. So we're going to put it right there. And we're going to put it up here. And maybe a little bit right here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I typically like to put in a heart shape. You saw how I did that kind of with that. And then you're going to go straight into your lightest color. The lightest color I have here is beige, but I'm going to use burnt ochre because that's like a little bit lighter and that blends really, really well with Tuscan red. So you see how I'm doing my Tuscan red right here. And I'll show you how to draw the 4C air next week because I didn't realize how much time I would have that would just go into drawing this. Plus I kind of got like a late start and my phone's going to die, so I don't want my phone to die in like the middle of this. That would suck. So I'm going to kind of like speed draw this. I'm just going to keep an eye on my thing. It's on 24. I already killed 3%, and I don't know how. I'm going to use Sienna Brown because that's the next darkest. Sienna Brown is kind of like a weird brown. It's like it's a light brown, but it's not. And because of that, it can sometimes give it a really weird color. I honestly don't like Sienna Brown as much as I like using like burnt ochre, because burnt ochre is just a nicer color. But you can pretty much get away with not using Sienna Brown in most of your things, but I like to put it in just because it does make it look like more realistic. And even though it can be like a weird color because it has like a green undertone, you still kind of need it. So terracotta is like another one of those kind of weirdish colors because it is like a little bit red. It's closer to red than Tuscan red for some reason. And I don't know why that is. So that's why I'm going over this completely. Because this person is going to have a red undertone to them. Because I already used Tuscan red. And I wanted to make it clear that this person is going to have a red undertone to make it more vibrant and kind of match up with the paler color. Also, if you see me going back and forth with the pale colors, it's just because it keeps smudging it on the other side, and I don't want that to happen completely. So just ignore that. So dark brown is kind of like a color that you want to use really sparingly, because even though you see like dark skin tones, you'll think, oh, well, then that must be this brown or that brown. But it's not always brown. Sometimes, especially I see this with people who try to draw anyone in a cool light setting, they'll immediately think that putting in a really, really green or just like a really just a different color is a good idea. And sometimes it is. Sometimes putting in green for shadows is fine. But you have to do it sparingly, because if you don't, then it just makes it look sickly green. Unless that's exactly what you're going for. Like if you're drawing, like, I guess I see that on Walking Dead a lot. I don't really read Walking Dead, but I know I like to look at comic book art like a lot, because that's where I model my style after most. And it's pretty visible to see what they're going for because they use that sort of color. And that's because, yeah, zombie apocalypse, use green because zombies are, yeah, I know it's low battery. Oh, did that go off? Okay. I'm gonna hurry this up. And you can see that it's kind of like a light color, a light green color in most of their shadows. Sorry, my nose is running. And that's because they go for that. I'll talk about mood and stuff probably next week, and I get to eye color, because eye color is a big one that I have to do. My phone is on 20%, so I'm going to hurry this up. And eye color can express a lot of the mood as well. Oh, jeez. You might see me just kind of like touching this up next week, because I didn't realize that I just did not plug in my phone. Great. I'm using Sienna Brown again. And you kind of see it does really work with this color, which is great because I thought it wasn't going to. Like I said, I will definitely touch this up next week. It's not going to look like this next week. I do hope you guys come back next week, because next week will actually be really fun, because I really love drawing hair. It's my favorite thing to draw. And because I won't be rushing as much. So I'm just going in, putting those final shadows. I just need to nose bridge real quick. You'll see me jumping around a lot, and that's just because I'm trying to get this done faster. But whenever you're doing drawing, especially like this, use a reference, because it makes your life a lot easier. And it makes your art look better whenever you're using some sort of color reference or some sort of even just some sort of drawing reference. Like I'm always using some sort of burnt ochre. Some sort of cool comic book art reference, because I like the colors that they use. Because I don't always have the colors that I need immediately. I'm also going to put in some touches of cream, and that's just to show light. This is blending terribly, and that's only because I'm going so fast. Yeah, note to self, actually charge your phone at night. I'll do that next time. I need my phone up for my alarm, so I just didn't. Back my dark browns, put this, overlay it, and now I'm just going to go in, and I'm going to try to just lighten up the shadow a bit so that it can blend better. Another thing is, don't be too worried if your shadow just kind of looks weird, because shadows generally are pretty sharp. And I see like a lot of people getting really upset that their shadow looks too dark, or it doesn't look light enough, or that it's kind of some people think it just looks unnatural. And sometimes that's not always necessarily a bad thing, because nice thing about shadows is that they could be lightened up a lot. And that you can do a lot with shadows. You play around with the mood a lot. Unless you're going for like a specific thing or you're on digital, you could do some really cool things with just colored pencil textures. So for my colored pencil textures, I typically use some more circular motions to make it more look like a skin tone and like look like skin, because that's what you're more likely to use when coloring them. I was hitting this up with another Sienna Brown coat to mix better with the shadow. I think I put it underneath. And oh my gosh, there was so much stress. And then I'm going to go into using final colors for the final shadows. And then I've done final shadows. Notice that we all have like this weird triangle thing underneath our eyes, like this weird cheek thing. I didn't notice that until after drawing. I also didn't notice like a lot of things that are nice about drawing is that I've noticed how different everybody looks while drawing, because some people have like a triangular shaped face, some people have more freckles than others and whatnot. So that's another reason why I really encourage drawing, especially at a young age, because you can really easily teach kids that not everyone looks perfect. And it can really show you how things like Photoshop and such work, and how like filters and different things make things look kind of just unnatural. I started noticing that like shortly afterwards, because I noticed like my eyes don't look that big, and then it's like, well, no one's eyes look like that big, which I think was a good learning thing for me, because if you're really just surrounded by stuff that keeps making you think that you should look a certain way, like all the time, you're gonna actually think you should look that certain way. And I know I covered up this person's eyebrows, but because it is, I'm going to be drawing black brown hair, well, black darkish brown. It's kind of probably being more sienna, but I could actually just draw the eyebrows right on top. This side looks like a lot better than the other side. I really don't like drawing light skin for some reason. I think that's just because it always looks either way too pale or it just doesn't look right to me. That's just because I try to use my own skin tone as a reference for a lot of things, that's why I see like a lot of my really old drawings, everything looks like me, because I'm using me as a reference. And I really suggest using yourself as a reference when starting off, because it's really, really helpful, especially when you don't have like a constant point of reference. And I also use it just because I know where my joints go, and I know where I can move my arms and stuff. So I know where different things go, and I can understand how different things work better. So I'm moving around myself. And definitely like looking in the mirror is helpful too. But sometimes you just be fun to do self-portraits. I typically don't do self-portraits unless it's part of a school assignment or something else. And that's just because I just don't like drawing myself, and I don't know why. I think it's because I just judge myself too harshly. And I think it's a problem with a lot of artists. And they think they should just, they point out like all different ways. It's like, oh, this doesn't look like my other drawing. And they realize that maybe they make it too stylized and don't like their style. They don't like drawing themselves in that style. There's just like a lot of different factors that go into it. Oops. I have a plastic cat holding this up, so. There we go, okay. Now just gonna go with that red last time. But yeah, just experiment a lot. Okay, my phone is like right about to die. I say that a little bit there just so I know where that is. And where's my Tuscan Red? Tuscan Red always goes over the eyelids. I don't know why, that's just a rule. Maybe it's just because of my style that's a rule, but not necessarily. And then I'm just gonna draw that. Then a little bit of Tuscan Red underneath. And there we go. I haven't checked the chat in a very long time. And see, that's the problem with drawing right to left. Okay, I'm gonna check the chat. Nope, nobody. Is there a problem with drawing from right to left if you're left to right? No, wait, right to left if you're right-handed. Because you get these weird things you have to just try to get out. Okay, I think this turned out pretty well. I mean, my shadows could use a little bit of work. And shadows can always be kind of weird. I also feel like I could have used more red up in here. And I feel like I could have used more shadows in my paler drawing. And the peach skin. But that's just because I always get a little confused as to how to draw like lighter skin with that purple. So I'm just gonna go over that. I just want to say thank you to everyone who like attends or is just watching these later. I really appreciate just like how many people just like got interested in this, because this is like a really fun passion of mine and I really love doing it. And I don't really get to do this very often. And it's definitely like a nice break from other stuff like with COVID, especially like since I just did this. I did so much schoolwork. I have summer work I need to do still. I have barely started it. And it's nice to be able to draw and teach people, especially since we couldn't be in person this year, and then get to do it next year. So thank you everyone for just attending or watching or wherever you guys are. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for doing it, Gigi. We really appreciate it. I love all those colored pencils. Like, I want to play with them.
Thank you. I love them so much. You can actually get these on Amazon for really cheap.
Awesome. Alrighty. Okay. Well, I'm going to say goodbye then, and we will see you next week, Gigi.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for attending and for watching this later. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, let me know next week. Bring colored pencils again next week as well. It doesn't really matter what color pencils you have. I like to use Prismacolor. They can even be Crayola, and sometimes I just use these because they blend better. But if you don't have these, don't feel worried. Just bring whatever color pencils you have, and just whatever art supplies you have. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you next week.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.